Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me today in the Locher Room. I'm Alan Locher. Hollywood executive Samantha Hart is here today to discuss her compelling new memoir, Blind Pony, as true a story as I can tell. Samantha bears her soul to readers, revealing to the world a heart-wrenching childhood of abuse that she endured by her own grandfather, which led to her life as a runaway teen, landing her in 1970s Los Angeles. Her coming of age story chronicles her journey into her 20s as she navigated various abusive relationships, toxic Hollywood characters, her personal relationship to her Marlboro Man, idolized father Wild Bill, and ultimately, how she found her North Star. Please welcome to the Locher Room, Samantha Hart. Hey, Samantha, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. Hello, everyone.
What prompted you at this time to write the book?
Well, it was a series of prompts, I would say. I came upon a journal that I wrote when I was 12 years old. I've always been a journal writer, and I opened this journal and it said, I hadn't looked at them in a long time, and it said, this is the story about me. Nobody special. That was the first line of the book that I was set out to write. And I just read those words and they just punctured my heart, because I realized it took me back to the memory of being that 12-year-old girl who really felt like she had something to say. And the recollection of what she wanted to say was something that I realized I was living not only in the recesses of my mind, but in the recesses of my soul. And it was something that was time for me to maybe fulfill that young girl's wish to be heard and seen. And the book is called Blind Pony, as true a story as I can tell, because when my grandfather, who, as the book details, was very abusive to me, presented myself and my sisters with ponies and horses, he gave me the blind one. And it was sort of a form of control. It was a manipulation to sort of keep me, belittle me or make me feel damaged like the pony. She was only blind in one eye. She was a show pony and her eye got kicked out. But it became a metaphor for so many things in my life. And, I never felt good enough. I never felt special enough to have, the nice horse or the fast horse. So when my sisters would take off galloping up over the hill, I was often left in the dust, because she spooked at a lot of things. And so it, as I started to reflect on all those things, I realized, I deserve better. I always have deserved better. And I went out and sort of made a life for myself. I overcame all these things. And I started to think about it and really think about how far I had come, what the distance between that 12-year-old girl and now a woman who's raised 3 children, and has had a pretty amazing career. I've been lucky, but I've had great mentors and whatever. And I've worked my butt off. But at the same time, it just felt like there was something missing in my life. I wasn't seen and heard. And even though I felt like my life is very fulfilled, I did feel that there were parts of me that were just, if you sweep something under the rug, guess where it stays? Under the rug.
Yeah.
And so if you're holding something inside your heart or your soul, that's going to be a dark recess. It's not ever going to be lit up. It's not ever going to be, something that is going to be shining. I deserve better. I deserve to fully shine, be the full Samantha, like not just
The
the
full
little.
Samantha. But it's also something so painful that you're hiding, which also makes it darker. That was a 12-year-old journal. When did you start journaling?
started journaling probably when I was 5 years old.
Wow.
Shortly after the abuse started happening. I don't have some of the earlier journals, but I have everything from when I was just about 12, maybe a little younger. And it just, when I was reading them and I was reading these things, I couldn't even believe the things I went through. The things I went through to escape the farm, to, everything. I mean, becoming a underage barmaid, sort of surviving on my own wits, going, graduating from high school, getting through, and kind of landing in Hollywood and working my way up here. And I think,
yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna just ask, was it hard reliving these memories as you were writing? I mean,
it was horrible. I mean, actually, I started really trying to write it about, like, say, 5 years ago. And in fact, I wanted to find somebody to write it for me. Can I just tell you what happened, and have you just write it all for me? Because, like, I'm definitely a person who's immediate gratification, and I'm also bright, shiny object, I'm gone. So the discipline it takes to write is really something, because, like, I write copy or whatever for ad campaigns, but it's not the same process at all. And of course, no one else could write this story but me, because I'm the only one who knows what really it felt like. And so I really had to take myself back to the mindset of that young girl and really relive a lot of it in a way. And I was, I was kind of tortured by it. There were times when I would, curl up in a ball and just not want to continue, or I'd be lucky enough to get a big job that would take me away from it. So I'd put it in a drawer and I'd forget about it for a while.
The big shiny distraction.
Yeah. So I didn't write continuously. I wasn't a disciplined writer because I'm not really a writer. Now I kind of think I've grown into the shoes a little bit, because I'm writing a novel now, but and I really enjoy it. I love it. There's so much, it's so freeing. But at the time, it took me a long time, and I'd get so depressed by it that I would just be, it's not my usual state. And then I realized something about myself. The way that I overcame a lot of the sadness in my life is I, would, for example, make people laugh. I was really good at that. And I would try to, especially like growing up on the farm with my sisters, I would go out in the snow and in the freezing snow barefoot and do this face I called the Frozen Seymour, which I will not make for you because my face might stay like that. But I would make this face and they would just laugh till they were like, their bellies were aching.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to find brevity, and I did that in my career a lot. I was always playing things off or trying to be funny or trying to be, silly or whatever. And I really think I just I realized that. So in writing the book, but it was really during the pandemic. I basically had a skeleton book. I had it laid out the way I wanted, and it was getting there. But when the pandemic hit and I really had the time to sit down at the desk because, I wasn't working and things just slowed down, it just poured out. It just all came together sort of during that period of time. Did
you find it cathartic by the time you were done?
Oh, cathartic is the best word for it. I mean, the funniest story still is when my sons came home and found me curled up in a closet. And the only way they found me is I was snoring because I was in this dark place writing the book. And, when I was little, I used to hide places. I never wanted anyone to see me sad so I used to hide, find secret hideouts or I'd always look for somewhere dark to hide and be alone. And when I was writing the book, I went into that headspace and I was like crying, and I went into a closet and curled up in a ball with a blanket and I fell asleep. And so they're like, "Where is she? Where is she?" And then they hear this snoring.
Did you realize that you were sort of going back to, that childhood moment by doing that? Did you, did it
Yeah.
hit? Yeah.
Oh yeah. And there, during that period of time that I was writing the book, definitely my personality, everything, was. I'm kind of glad it was like the pandemic when I really squeezed the book, because I wasn't around anyone, and I was able to really go into, because it's told in the first person. It's told from the little girl's perspective. And so, there's some funny scenes where, I had to go back. I mean, of course, I haven't done drugs in years, and I did a lot of drugs in those days. And so, I had to sort of remember, like, as much as I thought about meeting someone on a street corner somewhere to get something, I didn't method market, write that much. I just tried to remember what it felt like. Those crazy times. It was a different time. Drugs were really a part of our lives for a lot of people, not just of the culture, for sure.
Well, because I do want to go back, but talk about what's your mission with the book and what you hope people take away from it, and then we'll get into the story, because I do want to talk more about that.
Well, when I first started writing it, it was really just to fulfill this, as I said, this young girl's dream or whatever. It's kind of, but I think it was also for me to, a catharsis, and it was for me to sort of, challenge myself, because I really felt like it was a story that needed to be told. As hard as it is to talk about my family in this way, and as much as I felt jeopardized with relationships of mine that I care about, at some point the person inside of me just was drawn to do it. I had to do it. I had to speak my truth. And my husband really encouraged me to do it. And then when I was finished, I said, he said, "It's really good, Sam." And I'm like, "I don't know." And he's like, "It's good." He said, I said, "Okay, we'll send it to one reviewer. And if it sucks, if they say it sucks, I'm just going to put it in a drawer for my grandkids so they know who the real grandma was."
Yeah.
And I got an amazing review from Kirkus, a very generously beautiful review. And it was so unexpected. And then, I even went back and made edits after that. So it's even better than the Kirkus review now. Because, like, another reviewer said, she used too many solecisms. And I was like, "What's a solecism?" And then I went through the book and I got rid of all the solecisms. So, it definitely surprised me. I thought, I think I've always had I'm good with copy. I can write. But writing a book, like I said, is a whole different thing.
And about a painful time in your life. It's completely different.
So painful. And it didn't, like, do you know how, like, when you get older, like a day, like a year goes by, like, what?
Blinks.
2021 now or whatever.
Yeah.
when you're 14 years old, it goes on forever. It's like it's never going to end. And so much happened. There's so much is packed into my life between the age of 14 to 21. These formative years. I lost my childhood. And I think that in writing this book, the challenge for me was to maybe gain a little piece of that back for myself, to try to make sense of why I wasn't loved. I have children. I look at them. I love them. I can't imagine why someone looked at me and didn't love me. or wouldn't advocate for me or wouldn't be there for me. I would do anything for my children. So that was really hard. And, just, when you have kids and you look at them and you love them so much, it does remind you that you weren't loved. That's a hard thing to grapple with as well. But then I think
at any age, at any age,
you're right. And, and I think that finally, Steven Tyler told me once that, because of his drug abuse or whatever, he stopped growing. And he said, so now I started growing. So now I'm really only like 30, 31 or, whatever. He said, but I think, developmental arrest is a real thing, and I think I kind of had that a little bit. I think that some of the things that people call, they think are eccentric about me or whatever, over the years, people have called out me as being a little eccentric. I think it really emanated from, that sort of developed my own personal growth, being arrested in ways that I was, I had matured in certain ways, and I wanted to. And so that was a real mission, but it's become bigger than that. Like in writing the book, what I've discovered from the readers, and I'm just stunned how many people have responded to this book positively. I am really stunned and humbled by it. I kid you not. I'm discovering there are a lot of blind ponies out there. And, that's the really big statement, to really discover that there are people that this has happened to that haven't had the courage to talk about it. It's not something you want to talk about. Do you really want to tell a future employer, I was abused as a child, and I was really into drugs for a while, and I was a teenage runaway and an underage barmaid and a backgammon hustler, and it's like,
get out.
yeah, it's like, so it really, I was hiding so many things, and and I'm a good person. I'm not saying, I don't think I ever lied to anybody about myself. I maybe little white lies or whatever, but they were things that were, I just was tired of it. I was really wanting to be my authentic self. I deserved to be my authentic self.
Hiding hurts oneself.
It hurts like hell. I mean, I have a very, very close person to me who just came out as gay to me. And I said to him, what are you coming out of? What were you in? Like, you're just you, baby. Just be you. Be your authentic self. That's enough. If anybody thinks it isn't, screw them,
Screw them, and they've got the problem. Yeah.
Yes, they've got the problem. In a way, I understand that because I, in a way, lived in the closet for a long time. That's where I kept putting myself.
Right. Well, that's where secrets put you for whatever abuse. Yes. For, my parents were Holocaust survivors. All of that, those things really hurt you, because you don't feel safe to be, gay too. I was, I'm gay, and I was in the closet from, early on. So
and why? Why did you have to be that way? Why can't you just
it was a period of time, oh my God, I was petrified, it wasn't.
No, I understand. Yeah, I believe you. I know. I believe you.
And definitely for some reasons, petrified for no reason, but large reasons, you know what I mean? Like,
I know the reason.
Yeah, there's just, it's society at that time. For me, it was like the early 80s.
Very tough.
What do you remember about the farm before, or maybe you don't, before the abuse started? Like, what was life like on the farm for you?
Well, I mean, I was brought back to the farm when I was like almost 5 years old, and abuse started probably within 6 months of my arrival. So I have, compartmentalized, a lot of my memories. And I think in the book, I think that that was a really wonderful thing about writing it, is I did conjure up, many of the wonderful memories of the farm. Blackberry picking with my grandma, picking apples, eating cherries till my belly ached, riding my pony, my secret imaginary friends in the woods that I, went to. And, there were wonderful things, rolling bales of hay, the smells, the lilac bushes. There were so many wonderful things, but, for so long it was so obliterated by so much pain. And so that was another good thing about discovering that. But my greater mission now, I feel really drawn to wanting to help young people, sort of who have disenfranchised childhoods, be able to cope and overcome these things. So I'm starting a foundation. I've started it. I haven't actually fully launched it yet, but I'm starting the Blind Pony Foundation, and I want it to be something that can help, this and be an umbrella for a lot of these topics, a lot of these teen issues.
Well, putting the mission into reality, making it a reality.
I mean, I didn't write this book to make money or, I didn't really, sometimes I scratch my head, why did I write this book? It really, my husband, he's such a sweet person. And, I don't think he's ever done any drugs. He's the total, I don't know how.
Total opposite.
Not that I haven't done drugs since I was basically 18 years old, but I'm just saying, we are a very unlikely couple, but he was one of the first people that I was really felt safe enough to really tell him my story. And he was just you're kidding me. Oh, you have to write this down. You have to talk about it. I said, well, I have written it down, but you can't see it. And I had all these secret journals, and I have them under lock and key. And I told my daughter, when I die, get those journals and burn them. I just I'm a very weird person that way. I didn't want to tell anyone all these things. Well,
I don't think that's weird, really. I think many people, it's protection, or it's some. Yeah, don't look at it as,
self-preservation.
Self-preservation. It was a way, for you to get through it. And you told people when the time was, it's all right, you just said your friend came out to you. He told you when he was ready.
Luckily he's very, very young. And so he has a beautiful, long life ahead of him to look forward to. Right.
Right, but you told your husband, and he's the right person,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And he encouraged me to write this book. The one thing about him that's annoying is he's very pushy, and he was very pushy about it. He kept saying, did you write anything today? Did you write anything today? And I'd be like,
leave me alone.
because it was just so difficult. It was so difficult. I cannot believe that I did it, that it's actually a book.
I know that you right.
It's I can hold it.
It's gotta be a great feeling.
It's tremendous feeling, and just the warm response that I've gotten from it, just from people. I can't believe on so many people on Goodreads giving it 5 stars. And 4 stars and 3 stars. I don't care how many stars. Just that they're even giving it 1 star. They read it,
But I do think it's honesty. When you open up and you share something so personal, I think it resonates, with people deeply, and helps people, whether they were abused or just you'll never know, to what degree, a certain chapter might just help somebody for whatever reason.
Oh my God. I did a show in Louisville, Kentucky, and it was kind of a weird thing. I don't know why they were even interested in me in the show, but like, I don't know if my book will really sell in Louisville, but not, just because it's, I don't know, it just didn't, I didn't feel I went in depth that much on the interview or whatever, but a girl linked me in. She wrote me a LinkedIn message and said, "Oh my gosh, I saw you on that show and I got your book." And she said, "It's my story." And I related to it so much. And she said, "You've helped me so much." And she said, "It's something I've been hiding for so long, like my real self." And like, I'm like, look, I am not, all I can tell you is do what I did, journal, write it down, try to get, some help, talk to a therapist, try to get in touch with these feelings and these memories, and try to, because I think it's been like a clearing for me. Honestly, I feel like a different person. I feel, I felt like, am I running the risk of like losing my clients, or people going to judge me? And, it's at one point, it's kind of just like, it just feels so free now to be my real self, I think, I don't really like,
You let go.
I don't think it is. Yeah. I just
you really let go of, of a hard childhood. You ran away at 14. Were you abused from 5 till you left home?
Yeah.
Wow.
Sexually abused.
That's 9, not 9 or so years. For you to just,
the hard part for someone, when you are that young and you don't really know what's happening. You don't really know.
I was curious. Did you? Yeah.
Well, it's like, is this love? Is this how someone gets attention? But by the time you're around 11 or so, you start to figure out this is not nice. This is not what's supposed to be happening between me and my grandfather.
Right.
And, but by then I've been conditioned, and I've been sort of brainwashed for so long that, and as I grew up, it was like, he would maintain such a control over me. Like, there was one incident, like my pony Princess, the blind one, she gave birth to a little filly that I helped birth. There was no vet. It was just me and her. And I was there, witnessed the birth of Misty. I named her Misty. And I broke her in, and that's a big deal to break a pony, And I was riding her, and then finally I had a steed worthy of like that my other sisters had. And then one day my grandfather said, "You won't be riding Misty anymore. That's your sister's horse." And he just took the horse from me and left. And I saw my sister grow from a Shetland pony to Misty to a horse named Belle, and I was stuck in time with the blind pony Princess. And if you can imagine that manipulation, of my feelings, and just sort of, and being threatened that if I told anyone, we wouldn't have anywhere to live because my parents were divorced, and and it was just a terrible, awful. There were so many horror stories that I could tell you about that place, that went on. He became more and more abusive the older I got, because he knew that I was trying, I would figure out ways to get away from him. And sometimes I literally put myself in harm's way to protect other people, because he was that much of a pedophile. So, the other thing too that I want to mention, and I feel really strongly about this, is I really am tired of, people not believing victim stories.
Oh.
They think, oh, nothing happened. Well, why would a little girl make something like that up? Where do they even have the frame of mind or the reference? or whatever. I mean, when someone has been abused, you know, you can tell, it's obvious to me, at least, having gone through it, and it stays with you so long. And there's varying degrees. Maybe someone's only been abused once or twice, but and you say, oh, they only
they're still abused.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's something that is going to be, it's like ephemerally in your psyche for the rest of your life.
I won't know the statistic, but there's one of the co-hosts of The View, Sunny Hostin, who was a prosecutor. I remember her talking during one of the moments where they were talking about somebody who was talking about abuse. The percentage of women, I think it was women, but I could be wrong, but of victims who lie about this is minuscule.
Yes.
It's exactly what you're saying. Why would anybody right? Why would you be, and there are, sadly, people who have, and that is the reason that there are others who do not always trust that somebody's telling the truth. But to know that the statistic is very low of anybody making this up, people need to understand that.
They really do. And I mean, that abuse sent me careening toward adulthood with very few life skills.
I'm sure.
Like a little girl alone in the world. I went looking for my dad. You mentioned the Marlboro Man. I mean, he was larger than life to me.
So wait, so your parents were divorced and you went to LA in search of him.
Well,
right?
I actually went to Arizona in search of him. And
when did he leave home? Like, had you?
Well, we lived in Arizona, and my mom ran away. She ran away with the 5 girls back to the farm.
Gotcha.
She left him, and he stayed.
So you hadn't seen him in a very long time.
I hadn't seen him. He came up to me he with his brothers, Pinky and Skinny. I was out.
I love that.
I was out on Gobbler's Knob, rolling bales of hay down, and my grandfather was, telling us to hurry because there was a specter of a storm coming. And all of a sudden, this man in a white cowboy outfit on a white horse comes riding up Gobbler's Knob with 2 other men. And, I knew most of the people around there. He didn't recognize. And I thought, could that be my dad? And he came up to me and he said, "Girl, what's your name?" And he's like, "You're Sam. Don't you forget it." And my grandfather came up and stabbed him with a pitchfork. And it wasn't, like gushing blood or anything, but in my naive young mind, this became like emblematic of Christ on the cross. Like my father was like going to be my savior. He was going to come and, save me. And this image of that scene, just got amplified.
How old
in my mind.
Were you at that time?
8 years old.
Wow.
And so, I hadn't seen my dad since I was 8 years old. And I met him at Dave's Tavern in Arizona, which was our meeting place. And I thought I was going there to live with him. And that wasn't going to happen. He had a new wife, new family. But he was like, "Hey, everybody, this here's my girl, Sam. And, what would you like? Yeah, get her a drink. What do you want to drink? I'll have a Coke. Oh, let's make it a rum and Coke." And I'm 14 years old, And that was my dad. And he was a character, and I didn't live with him. He helped me sort of get enrolled in high school. And then I wouldn't see him unless he'd come and beach himself drunk on my couch while I'm doing my homework. And I'm like, well, I got to get out of high school fast because I got to take care of myself. So I took correspondence courses and I tested out of classes, and I ended up getting high school I went to wasn't all that challenging. And I was pretty bright, so I was able to sort of get out early. And then as soon as I graduated, I just left. I left Arizona. I didn't want to be anywhere near Wild Bill because he was so crazy. Do you know, the one thing he did that was nice for me, he bought me a car, an old clunker, because he embarrassed me so much at my high school graduation because the cliche, he showed up drunk. And he put sugar in my gas tank before I left town. He found out I was going to move to California, so he sabotaged my car so I wouldn't leave. I left anyway, but that's I mean,
so
these
arrive
are not
in
good role models.
Yeah, they're definitely not no, I mean that's the thing. And then you leave for Los Angeles, and like what's the first thing you do? I mean, you're 14 years old.
Now I'm older. Yes, I'm 16 now, and so
14 and 16 aren't much different when you're arriving in. Well, I don't think.
Yeah.
I mean a little, but when you're arriving alone in a big city like that, that's a scary thing.
Well, I was set up. I went several weeks earlier. I had met a man who sort of introduced me to someone who was looking for a roommate and would let me stay at his house. And I had no idea that meant like this is a middle-aged man who's going through a midlife crisis, and this would probably involve me, offering him favors in exchange for staying there. I didn't understand that. So I went over to meet him, and it was a very, he was in his late 30s, and he loved backgammon, and he loved cocaine. And so he wanted somebody to snort cocaine with him and stay up all night playing backgammon all weekend.
Wow.
And be his companion and like have sex with him if he wanted it or whatever in exchange for a place to stay. And I was so desperate that it's really hard to say all this. I don't even know if it's okay to say it, but that's in the book. I learned how to play backgammon. I learned how to play backgammon, and I learned really quickly. And when I was leaving to go pack up my apartment in Arizona, he said, "Yeah, you can be my roommate," because this was like the tryout or whatever. And I mean, it was a backgammon book sandwiched between an Esquire and a Playboy, and I sort of snatched it on my way out the door, and I studied that thing cover to cover. And when I came back, like I could actually beat him, which made him really mad. And then, then I would just like let him win so I could go to bed, like go to sleep, because he just would stay up snorting coke all night long, like, because he worked during the week. So all weekend, all he wanted to do was like, stay up and do blow all night long and play backgammon. And so I got very good at it. And then I sort of met someone, and they introduced me to a club where they played, and I started gambling and making money, and so that was kind of cool. But then
I love that you actually made money playing backgammon.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I love that. I played, when I was younger, I played fifth grade. I had a certificate on my wall for years because I beat somebody in some contest. I remember it, but never made money on it.
I made money. I mean, it was high stakes backgammon, and and I got, I had, my dad is a gambler, so I think I just have it in my DNA. And I was very cute when I was that age. I was very charming and witty, and I just had a way about me that I could just sort of absorb the room and kind of play to that. And, like a little actress or something. And, I'd blow on the dice and throw them. And,
did you see the Queen's Gambit on Netflix?
It's from my book.
It makes me think of that immediately.
Absolutely. I mean, that book is, I mean, that's a masterpiece. But if if you were to shoot that set piece, it would be very similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah, because it was her
I was a
and
different character.
but it was all, women, all men and her.
Yes.
It
And that's
sounds
kind of what it was.
yeah. Wow.
That's kind of what it was. I mean, there were women, other women on different men's arms or whatever, but it was very much, I was in charge, and I garnered the name Backgammon Girl, so that was kind of fun for a while, and it just sort of, and then that world kind of blew up for me. I'm a very very sensitive person, and I think that when I saw through the veneer of what was happening at that period of my life, I never wanted to look back. I turned my back on all of that and went in a whole other direction. And I think that that's, it's like someone wrote actually a review about my book, and they said, about, I forget how she said it. It was really poetic, but it was like that my compass turned wildly. And it was true. It was like, I would do a complete about face and a complete reinvention of myself to leave one situation and become another. For a while, I was British. Someone thought I sounded British, so I went with it. Because certainly being a girl from England, who has a family all waiting to give her figgy pudding at Christmas is a lot more attractive than being a girl from a rural Pennsylvania farm where she was abused. So I just would go along with these, narratives. And
it sounds like you were creating fantasies to help you really
cope with reality.
Cope with it, and also not have to admit that
face the truth.
Right, face the truth that you had been through. So where do you think the strength came from to move past all of it?
Gosh.
I mean, you were, pulling yourself out of the situation is probably as hard as it was, and leaving and going to find your dad and then getting to LA was probably, a savior as well, as hard as.
Yes. I mean, even though the guy with the Coke bottle lenses in the book, I say he looked like a Margaret King painting if they wore glasses. I mean, but even though it was most unpleasant, I didn't enjoy it. At that point in my young life, at 16, 17 years old, I felt like, well, maybe if it's about sex, maybe it's okay. Maybe if it's just sex, maybe it's okay. If it's not a matter of my heart, that's kind of where I drew the line. If it was a matter of my heart, I would protect myself. That's where I was fiercely protective. I didn't want anyone to, take that from me, and so, I went. Yes, I mean, I can't believe all of the things, when you really add them all up, all the things I read the book and I'm screaming at this girl, no, don't do it, and the only thing that helps me is I know everything turned out okay at the end, but it was a very bizarre. I ended up in England. I traveled the world. I did so many things, and a lot of the experiences I look back on and I want to do them over again, because there were some great times and great adventures.
You were robbed of, many things.
Yeah, and I was completely robbed of my childhood. I feel like, and my 20s and my 30s even, because I couldn't become the woman I should have been. Do you know what I mean? Even though I've been successful, and I have a beautiful home, I have 3 amazing children, 2 beautiful granddaughters, and I have so much, great relationship. It's not right that this was taken from me. What could I have done with my life how could I have contributed to society or the world had these things not happened to me? Or is this my greater calling now that these things happen to me, and if I share them and I bring it out in the open, you know,
Well, you
am I
must look at, you have 3 children, like you said. You have 2 granddaughters. I mean, that's, looking at them and connecting all of that, there's something that you're seeing, and realizing how far you've come, and I'm sure incredibly protective of them because of what
Well, I mean,
you've.
like my biggest fear with my daughter was that she was going to run away.
Hmm.
And looking back on it now, like, I was a pretty cool mom. I mean, like all the kids, like they dressed me up to go to the Marilyn Manson concert with them, because like, to make me look like, because I actually looked, younger for my age than I was probably when my daughter was a teenager. And she looked more mature, so most people thought we were a lesbian couple when we got together. But because we were so close, we were always holding hands and stuff. But like, sometimes I wish I would have been a little stricter with her. I mean, I don't think I really treated her like my friend. I was very motherly and very protective of her in that way. But I had this constant fear in the back of my mind that she was going to run away. And it was so silly. And I wasted a lot of time on that. And, like she'd say, like, I'd say it's time to get braces. I don't want braces. Okay. I mean, I gave in to certain things. I mean, or, I want to change schools. Okay. Like I want to go to this $60,000 private boarding school up in Idlewild. Okay. Whatever she wanted, because I wanted
From
her
that
to be
fear.
happy. The fear came from fear, not from, sort of. It was not only fear. She deserved to go to that school. She's an amazingly talented person, and is creative. She's a creative person, a singer. She has her own business now, running theater arts for children, and she's a beautiful, beautiful person. She turned out great. But looking back on it, I mean, I even had a boyfriend at the time who said to me, "What are you afraid? What is she going to run away from? She has everything she wants here. Like, she has a beautiful home. Like, what are you, nuts? Like, she's not going to run away." But
So talk about you mentioned in the book the North Star.
Well, that was my daughter.
Oh,
I mean, it was.
That's awesome.
It was really like, as soon as I knew that I was pregnant with her, I said, this cycle of abuse that's gone on in my family for God only knows how long, because, it probably happened to my mother, which probably was part of the reason that she had such a difficult time with me. I don't like saying it. I don't want to put words in her.
Do you know if any of your other family knew what was going on with you?
Well, I would say it would be, I don't really want to talk about my family per se.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
I want to respect their privacy.
Yeah.
But I will suffice it to say it's pretty hard. It would be pretty hard to live in that home and not know.
Okay. If someone was if somebody is watching today and, experiencing any of the things you discussed today, what would you like to say to them to help them?
It depends on how old they are, because it's like to tell a 12-year-old girl, run, like,
yeah,
run like hell, it depends. I mean, like, I think that someone who's been abused and has hidden it or kept it a secret, they need to at least bring it out into the light to themselves. Journal, write a journal, write it down, talk about it, find someone to talk to about it, a therapist, a pastor, a friend, a confidant, whatever works for you, but you need to let it out. Go in the woods and talk to the wood sprites like I did when I was little. That works too,
Wow.
It's really, this was not scripted, but like I was at a real turning point in my life, and a very abusive thing happened between my grandfather and I ran up over the hills like I did every time to go to the secret log I had where my wood sprite friends lived, and I, would cry and sit on the log and
I want to hug you right now.
And it was a fallen log across a barbed wire fence that went into a neighboring sheep farm. And I got up there and it started to pour down rain, that kind of Pennsylvania rain with lightning and lots of wind. And I look and there are puddles of blood out in the field, the sheep field. And all of the sheep had been massacred by a wolf.
Oh.
And so it's like, I was just sobbing, and it was like, that was my epiphany where I said, there's no going back. And in my, young mind, I was probably around 13 then. I said, okay, the wood sprites died today. They were massacred by the wolves. It's gone. All this is gone. Like, it's time to, do whatever I have to do to get out of here. So, that's, I think, so like, like, how do you tell someone who's in it how to survive it? I think that if you're a parent and this is happening to your child, if you don't advocate for them, you should be in jail. I think that if you're the person who's hurting a child, you should be in jail. I think that the laws should be stricter for these people. And, it's like, the Me Too movement, I think, even though this isn't Me Too, what I'm talking about, I do think that those very brave women who came forward to talk about their experiences really helped for me to be able to talk about this because it sort of broke down some walls. And so I think anytime that you can move the conversation forward,
right,
that's healthy,
You had mentioned that really no one in your life knew all of this. Do you remember the first time you really articulated what had happened?
My husband.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was we've been together about 18 years, so not that long, 20 years maybe. Maybe little tiny
says
things.
A lot for him. He made you feel very safe.
Yeah, I had different boyfriends over the years that I would tell maybe certain stories to, or certain kind of, situations, I remember, or friends, different, I remember the director, Steven Soderbergh, we were good friends for quite a long time because I worked on a lot of his films. And, I would tell him stories about, just nothing like what the book is about. But I told him the story that my mom dated this one guy named Ernie Mancini, who was Henry Mancini's cousin. And that would just make him fall out into laughter. He just thought that was the funniest thing. Like, you're kidding, his cousin? And she was having an affair with him. And I outed her because the wife called when they were in Hawaii, and she pumped me for information. But I was 9 years old.
Right.
That's not in the book. But for example, I had told Stephen that story, and he thought that was hilarious. He thought that was. He said, "Oh, you've got to write a book, Sam. That's so funny, you know."
Well,
I mean,
well, you
I
see,
told different people little bits and pieces, but not
right,
any of the really serious stuff.
and not the painful stuff, really.
No.
Yeah. Well, and you really, took your life and made a huge success. Your first job or first job in the entertainment business, working for Neil, which one?
Neil Diamond.
Neil Diamond. I knew it was Neil, and I was like, is it Sadak or a Diamond? I couldn't remember. What did you do for him?
Well, that's an interesting story. I sort of fell into that job. I didn't even want that job. I was a receptionist or secretary or whatever for his publishing company. But I was dating one of this man, Hearst Martinez, who was discovered by Bob Dylan, and Robbie Robertson from the band produced his first record. And he was kind of this poet, artistic character that I met kind of on my travels. And we became very good friends, and then we became lovers. And he was really the first man, I think, that I really felt something for. Like I really loved him, you know. And he helped me in a great deal of ways. Like, we kind of lived in this cellar flat below Neil Diamond's publishing company. And we called ourselves the Mystic Bums. And like, we had no car, we had no money, we had no nothing. And that was just fine with me. I mean, I had been around the world, I had jet setted, I had done all this crazy stuff. And I was just done with that by this time. I just wanted to be a mystic bum, I just wanted to be like a bag lady, basically, at 20 years old or whatever. And hers, did. And then I decided, I've had enough of this. I want to get a job. So I started getting various jobs. Like I got a job at this place, New Zoo Review, which was like this cartoon place.
Yeah, Channel 13, right?
Yeah, they were in syndication.
Yeah.
And then I offered to be the hippo in the Macy Day Parade. And when I did that, I was 20 years old. When I did that, Hearth, he just was like, "You're kidding." He goes, "I can't unsee that. Like you have to quit. You cannot do that. You cannot be the hippo in the Macy Day Parade." And I was like crushed, and so every job I got, he had an excuse why I shouldn't do that job. And so finally the girl who was the secretary quit, and he got me the job. And I was so underqualified for it. I mean, you're supposed to type 120 words a minute, and I was kind of like, like a chicken pecker. And I think I created the first emojis, because when I went into dictation, I was doing like little symbols for everything the guy was saying. I would love, and it was a heart, like, I mean, luckily he had a way of talking, of speaking. He used the word notwithstanding a lot, and I would just draw a little knot,
Wow. And how did you make the transition to creative director? I mean, you've worked on amazing movies.
Well, I think that that was a good, working at Neil's publishing company was a good thing. Then I went to, unfortunately, Hearth and I got pregnant. Fortunate for me, because it changed my life. Unfortunate for him, because he wasn't very attuned to being a father. Let's just say that. And so, then my quest was on. It became, at that point, serious stuff for me. And so I quit that job, at Neil's place, where I was, definitely had job security, because he was a beloved poet, artist, whatever, musician. I quit that job and went to work for a high-powered law firm as a paralegal. Wow. I was breastfeeding at the time, and I think it was my tits that got me the job because I was huge.
I love that.
That was because I certainly was underqualified for paralegal. So when I was found out that I wasn't really
Qualified.
this attorney, he was a very special guy. He was so sweet. He said, "Look, take your time, but you cannot work here. I'm not going to fire you. I like you too much, but do your best, and we'll make this work." And so we ended up having, like, he loved using me to do all these hijinks that I won't get into. They're not in the book, but we did. It was really, I had a fun experience, but it opened me up to a lot of ideas. And I ended up getting a job at Chapel Innersong. And from there, I went to Windham Hill. And the day I started at Windham Hill Records, which was on the A&M lot, the girl who hired me quit. And I thought that I could do the job because it had, the words A&R in it or whatever, which artists and repertoire. And I had been working with artists at Chapel Innersong, and I was sort of apprenticing under these, song plugger girls or whatever. And so I was kind of like learning the creative side of the business. And, but the job, they took the A&R part, the creative part, away when she quit. And it was all just record production, which means actual physical production of making records.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know from Adam. And I was at the A&M production meeting, and they said, "Windham Hill, did you ship the parts?" And I just looked with a blank stare at the wing or the thigh, like how I could think of were chicken parts. I mean, but that endeared me to people. Again, you talk about being your authentic self. And everyone just sat for a second. And then Aubrey Moore, who was the head of production at A&M, he said, "Well, are you going to shake it or are you going to bake it?" And everybody just started laughing. And he said to this Janice, his right-hand person, he said, "Janice, teach this kid about making records, help her out." And so she taught me everything. And within 3 months, I could have told you anything about pressing records. I was going on press checks. I was learning about printing, all this stuff. So then I got recruited by Geffen Records. And at Geffen Records, it's a great place to be because, for one thing, at David Geffen never really believed in titles. He thought if people don't know what you're doing, then you're not doing anything.
Wow.
Like if they don't know who you are, then you're not doing your job. Like, so there were no boundaries. So you could kind of step outside the box and be really creative. And that's where I think I really put everything together, from my life, from, when I was little, we didn't really talk about this, but I had a knack for, like, taking the Salvation Army clothes I was given to wear and sort of pinning them certain ways. So I had a certain style,
creativity.
Yeah, I was very creative. I was always redesigning our house. I would move big credenzas around like they were doll furniture in this old farmhouse, and always trying to make things more beautiful. And so I think, like, and then, being introduced, traveling the world, going to some of the, these museums and meeting artists and going out with all these different men, maybe it wasn't the ideal way to learn about things, but I was exposed at a very young age to a lot of cultural things, and I kind of ended up, at Geffen, I kind of just put everything together and was able to kind of see a path toward, where I could go with what I knew. And so that's what I did. And, I worked for a photographer for a while as well in England. And
right, but you've taken that, all of what you've learned, and now you own your own agency, right?
Yeah, I have a little creative agency now. I had a very large company for 12 years with several offices in several different cities, and had 40, 50 people working for me. And I kind of decided that, the things were changing and I wanted to really do things in a different way. And so I sort of scaled it down, and now I have more of a boutique thing. I wanted to be able to not have to do every single KFC spot that came in the door. I wanted to be able to pick and choose more of what I wanted to do.
And is your company today Foundation? Is that what you have
No,
today?
my company today is called Wild Bill.
Oh, it is. Okay, great. I love that.
I called it Wild Bill actually before I decided to write the book. So that's kind of a funny thing, because now he's that character. But
Yeah.
my dad's a lovable character. He's definitely a lovable character, but he was not not a role. He was a role model, but not a good father.
Well, how's life today for you? I'd say pretty good with 2 grandchildren, huh?
It's terrible that I haven't seen them in a year, but I have had my first vaccine, so
yeah,
I'm getting my second one soon.
You feel okay?
Yeah, no, I feel great, and I'm really working on some advocacy campaigns for the vaccine right now.
Oh, wow, great.
Yeah, so we're doing that, our company, and one is with a company in South Central called Crossroads. We just did a video for them to help the community realize how important the vaccines are. And then there's another company we're working with, so on a larger scale. So it's going to be soon that I'm going to be going back there to see my grandchildren, and they're beautiful ones. 11, one's 4, and
well, FaceTime must be your friend.
Pardon?
FaceTime must be your friend, so you can see them.
Yeah, no, we do that a lot. Sometimes I have like sleepovers with my older granddaughter, like where we'll get on the phone and like eat a lot of chips and talk and hang out till really late, and we watch TV together, like the same time, watch the same show, and
that's awesome.
Then we both got into Billie Eilish at the same time and stuff. So, but yeah, no, I have an amazing life, and like my company's doing really well as far as like being able to survive this pandemic because of the way we fortunately we had a huge infrastructure over on the Hayden Tract in Culver City, and I don't know if it was just intuition. I just decided to lease the space and didn't really want to have this big infrastructure. Well, we made a film and a documentary, and after that experience, when no one was coming in to the office, I felt I really wanted to start working more remotely to spend more time with my sons. And so I had kind of adapted to this universe prior to the pandemic, just prior. So that was kind of a cool thing, that in that regard. I wouldn't say the pandemic's cool, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. I definitely know. Samantha, thank you so much for being here. This was amazing. You're really great to talk to.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. And I hope everyone goes to pick up Blind Pony, As True a Story as I Can Tell. It's available where all books are sold. You stay well. I hope the second shot goes as well as the first.
Thank you. Did you get yours?
I did. I am fully vaccinated now.
Excellent.
Thank the Lord. Have a great afternoon.
You too. Thank you so much.
Bye. You're so welcome. Bye. Thanks, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the show today with Samantha. Don't forget to go get the book. And if you haven't subscribed, you could do so. I'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Have a great day.